Hello there, I'm Dark Shades and I hail from the east of England. Welcome to my channel. If it's the first time you're passing through, you can put the thumbs up, you can put the thumbs down, you can subscribe, you can share. I tend to talk about relationship issues on this channel. I do have another one called Black Bright News, but that's mostly about social, political, that kind of stuff, and legislation. So, what I wanted to talk about in this video is, where did the love go? I mean, when you get together in a relationship, it really starts out well, doesn't it? And yet, during COVID, it's been saying that statistics show, I don't know how many of you know or have heard about Relate, but Relate say that there's been a 25% increase in breakups in relationships. I don't know how that translates into divorce, but I think between divorce and breaking up generally it's been an increase between 23 and 25% since COVID lockdown has started. So what does that tell you? What does that say about your choice? How you planned your relationship? Did you plan your relationship based on the fact that you weren't going to see your partner all the time? Did you plan not to spend 24/7 with them? How did you expect the relationship to pursue? Because if by virtue of the lockdown, and this doesn't apply to everyone, some people, they've seen the lockdown as a way to actually appreciate their relationship. But the majority of people, I don't know on what foundation their relationship was built, but they just cannot cope. They've seen arguments increase, domestic abuse has increased, that's increased by 23%. And they are just not coping well. So it made me ask the question, where did the love go? What was the relationship built on? How can something like a lockdown break up a relationship when the two of you are supposed to be in love? The two of you are supposed to have tolerance, and if you're married, you're supposed to be there in sickness and in health. So what's gone wrong? What's happened? I can only assume that relationships are built on potential. And they're also built on unrealistic expectations. I think those are the two main reasons why people get married, enter relationships. They believe that the relationship is going to somehow miraculously be wonderful. And they haven't really taken into consideration the fact that they're practically strangers, regardless of how long you've known each other. You never really know the other person. And they say you don't know anyone until you've seen them really, really angry and lose their temper. They reckon you shouldn't actually live with anybody or have a relationship with anyone until you've seen them really angry and know that you can cope with that anger. But putting that aside, what are we left with today when you're in a relationship and you've suddenly realised that the love is gone? Because the two of you have been confined for too long, you've realised that you're not as compatible as you thought you were. Okay, so 36% apparently have argued more during lockdown. Negative feelings are amplified. COVID exacerbates marriage problems. So does that mean there's a question of compatibility? That's what I mentioned before. Does it mean that who you thought you were compatible with, you simply weren't? It was based on an idealistic premise. You fancied them, you started going out with them, you ended up sleeping with them, and it was great. You see them every couple of weeks, or how often you see them, maybe even every other day, or whatever it is. But you had a choice. And in that relationship, you have a choice of when you want to see that other person. And even in marriages, you kind of have a choice because you choose to go out to work. You don't really have a choice, really. I mean, you have to work because of the family, but the expectation in a marriage or a relationship is that the two of you will be going out to work. You'll be spending a certain amount of hours separated. You might have children and they'll be going into childcare and you'll be picking them up after a certain time. But the woman usually gets home first and she'll sort out the kids and she'll sort out all the dinner, and then after she's sorted everything out and she's had a little natter to her friends, her husband comes in, she's able to give him some time. That doesn't work when you're both in lockdown. The two of you are, well, either you're able to work from home or you're not able to work from home. But if you are not working from home and the two of you are stuck and you haven't got anything to distract yourself, and say, for example, one partner is actually quite bitter and angry that they don't have a job, and you're in that house with somebody who's bitter and angry, nothing you say or do can console them, what happens? That doesn't seem to be a part of the bargain, doesn't it? That being together and not going out to work and having those hours of separation doesn't seem to be a part of the bargain. I don't think people bargained when they entered a marriage or relationship being with someone 24/7. That's why when you have a relationship, you have to choose very carefully. And you can tell when you're dating, because when you're dating and you can kind of get that feeling when people get on your nerves. And if you see someone and you started going out with them and, they're either nagging in your ears or you think, oh, bloody hell, I wish she'd go home. Or he might be saying, oh, she's getting on my bloody nerves. I can't wait to get out of here. But those are the signs. It's fine saying, okay, I can tolerate her or him in small doses. But supposing you don't have the chance or the opportunity to choose the dosage of the person that you're with, and you're just lumbered with them 24/7, which is the case. There's no way out. And especially when they're talking about you can only go out on essential trips, you kind of feel trapped in the house with somebody who you didn't even know until this moment, until COVID, until lockdown. And what do you do? So, question of compatibility. What was your love based on when you met? When you thought that this relationship would last forever, what was it based on? Was it based on looks? Was it based on sex? Was it based on financial stability? If it was based on financial stability, and then one person's lost their job, what happens? If it was based on looks, and that person doesn't look too great when he's in a bad mood, and then it could be if she was really beautiful and she's lost her job and she's thinking, look, I'm at home, got nothing to do, I'm just going to eat my face off. So she's stuffing herself, she's getting bigger and bigger. She stopped taking care of herself, stopped putting rollers in her hair, she can't go to the hair salon, she can't do her nails, she can't be bothered to put on makeup. And you go and you see her, every time you see her, she's stuffing something. And every time you see him, he's got a tin of beer, a crate of beer by his feet. The looks, what's happening to the looks in that situation? Doesn't look very attractive, does it? So, and then the thing is that it all goes hand in hand with sex, doesn't it? Because if the person don't look right, or if they kind of getting addicted to whether it's food or drink or whatever it is, they're not going to feel like sex unless they're drunk, and then maybe they might. So, even when the going is good and there's no COVID, divorce rate is 42%. So people are not taking time to choose. I mean, I've made two mistakes before. And I know when I chose my first partner, I was young. I was pregnant at the time, and my mum kind of said, listen, I don't want you having a baby out of wedlock, as it was known as then. And so she said, I'm going to pay for you two to get married. So the first one, it wasn't a marriage out of love, even though I felt in my young age of 18 that I was in love. It was kind of one of those frivolous love. I didn't know what love was. And so when the challenges came, I legged it. And as I got older, with my second husband, I knew that wasn't going to work because he was much too possessive. And I remember walking down the aisle. No, I remember saying to him, I think we should wait. And he said, you ain't effing going to make me wait. I ain't effing calling off this wedding. And you better effing get married and blah. And he went into one. And I thought, okay. That's what I said. Okay. I ended up getting married. But as I was walking down the aisle, I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew it wasn't going to work, but I felt kind of intimidated. And I was relatively young. But I mean, it's not an excuse because you're making a lifetime decision when you get married. But I knew it wasn't going to work. And I don't know. Well, no, it couldn't have worked because I was trying to think if he wasn't doing the job he did, which made him feel insecure leaving me at home, would it have worked then? But I think he had masses of insecurity problems. And so I don't think it could have worked anyway. But what I'm trying to say is that we know from the beginning, we know when a relationship will work or it don't. Sometimes we'll rationalize it and say, oh, it doesn't matter. And you kind of put things to the back of your head that either annoy you or upset you, or you think, oh, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. This is absolute, it's not a big deal. And we minimize a lot of problems, which are fine when you get a break. When you get a break and somebody goes off to work and the other person is doing something else and you're distracted from each other, that's fine. You have a few hours together, which you normally suppress anything that's going on inside you. You're not really saying what you really feel or what you really think. You're just keeping the peace and everything's going hunky-dory, and then you go to bed and you're able to have sex and you think, oh, let's get it over with. That kind of stuff. And you do it because you do it. And that's the way things are. But when you are forced together, like in lockdown, and all of those things that you thought you were distracted by, and you thought you could cope with or tolerate, now it's a different thing when these people are around you 24/7. So what I'm trying to say is that when you're making relationship decisions, you have to literally look at your partner and feel comfortable, 100% comfortable. And you have to be able to be 100% yourself for it to work. So that when these kind of situations come, you're able to still be your total self in that situation. Both of you. And I think what happens while these relationships are not working is that a lot of people, they're just getting together for the hell of it. They're getting, whether it's peer pressure, whether it's because they feel as though they should get married by a certain age, whether it's because they're showing off, or whether it's because, I don't know, people have thousands of reasons why they want to get with somebody and why they decide to get married. Lots of the reasons, it's not even love, it's just, just to say I got married. Even now, even in this day and age. You would think that, just living together is enough, but people still want to get married. They still want the fairy tale. So, but it's on hold now anyway with COVID, isn't it? And I mean, I guess the Home Office think, well, or the government think, well, there's 42% rate of divorce. Let's stop all of that and don't allow anybody to get married for a while. Give them time to spend time together to see whether or not they're compatible. So they're anticipating, they're predicting a post-lockdown divorce boom. How optimistic is that? Because they're saying it's the straw that broke the camel's back, which is the lockdown. And there's a lot of people now thinking, God, they're appreciating singledom, and they're kind of thinking, bloody hell, mate, I just can't wait to be single. So, more relationships are breaking under pressure. There's no patience for indiscretions, or it is very limited. Forgiveness seems to be getting harder and harder. You'll notice that people aren't forgiving so easily, or they're not forgiving genuinely. And forgiveness is for yourself more than the other person, because when you can't forgive, it kind of eats at you on the inside. So forgiveness is really important, and genuine forgiveness. You have to reach a point where you say, look, I know it hurts and I feel hurt, but in order to stop this feeling, I have to forgive. I have to accept that everyone is human. We all make mistakes and nothing is perfect. And you also have, there's a lack of compassion for partner's history. I think that's another reason why relationships break up, because I think people do talk initially. They do tell their partners what they've been through, but it's kind of brushed away as though it's not really that important. If a woman says, I had this boyfriend and he used to beat me up, or they say I had, a partner and he used to abuse me and that kind of stuff. Or if he says, my last partner, she went off with someone else. When they're telling you these things, it's like, it's not a big deal. It's almost like you think that they are seeking your approval. But what you should be doing is clocking the impact that must have on them. If a man tells you that his last woman betrayed him and started seeing someone else, you have to clock that he might have trust issues. Likewise, if a woman tells a man that she was beaten by her last partner, you have to ask yourself, oh, I wonder how she's going to react if I get angry. So you have to clock these things. But people don't. They go into relationships and people do share their past, but the other person hasn't got the wherewithal to understand what exactly that past means and how it might impact their behavior in the relationship. A lot of times it does. So, lack of empathy for heartbreaks. Men will be telling you, look, that woman, I really loved her. And, she let me down. And all you're thinking is, I don't want to bloody tell me about his ex. I'm not interested in his ex. He's telling me that he bloody loved her. So what's he doing with me then? I don't want to hear anything like that. It's coming from a totally selfish standpoint. But what he's trying to tell you is that he needs reassurance. He needs extra reassurance. But you're probably not hearing that. So what happens is that new partners pay for old partners' mistakes and their historical legacy, because that is what you take on. when you get into a new relationship. And so when you take on all of those insecurities and foibles and, shortcomings and whatever it is they come into a relationship with, it's compounded under lockdown. It's compounded when you're under pressure. So a lot of people, they have the lack of discipline to stick with it. So when it's going hard and you realise you've got this woman who's a bloody loony bin, or you've got a man who's all of a sudden started to become aggressive and nasty and sinister, you're kind of thinking, oh, I've got to get out. I'm going to leave. Instead of trying to calm the situation down and see if you can talk through it and try to find out. I mean, you're not counsellors. You don't have that kind of ability, but we all, if you're in a relationship with someone, you should know how to speak to them in a way that's not going to aggravate the situation. Some of us, we get selfish. We just want to say what we've got to say, and we don't think about the other person. It's really important to think about the other person and try to talk to them in a way that they will understand, and that in a way that shows that you care about them. And it's not just about you. So you have people who bail out when the trouble starts. They've got no tolerance when there's conflict. And you have to ask yourself, where did it start going wrong? It normally starts going wrong when people start picking at your faults. Whenever you make a mistake or whenever you do something wrong, they just tapping away at you, criticizing everything you do. Everything you do or everything you wear, they're finding fault with it. That's how it starts. Picking at people, judging, criticizing. That's how it starts. Highlighting the negative instead of looking for the positive, which is what you saw in the first place, why you ended up with them. So where is the positive gone? Why is the negative so overwhelming? It's because it's your state of mind. It's how a man thinketh, so is he. So if you're thinking negative, you're going to project that negativity on your partner, and you're only going to see the negativity in your partner. So you need to switch that around. So, and it's also about holding in and not letting it out. You know, a lot of people, they see these little things that annoy them. And sometimes it seems so trivial and you're like, oh, can't be bothered to tell him to put the toilet seat down. I mean, that's just a popular one. I can't be bothered to tell him to squeeze the toothpaste from the bottom up. I can't be bothered to tell him to put the shoes underneath the bed or close the drawer properly, or, put the flannel on the rail. I can't be bothered to tell him to wash out the sink after he's cleaned his teeth, or wash up the one little plate that's in the sink. All of these things seem trivial. And a lot of people, they think it and they think, oh, I don't really want to talk about it. I don't really want to raise it because it just seems so trivial. So you hold it in instead of letting it out and letting that person know. And what happens when you're in a lockdown and you've got nowhere to go and you're not getting this little reprieve, and all of these little things that have been aggravating you over the years is all coming, it's all accumulating one on top of the other? You blow. Whereas if you had mentioned it when you were seeing it or feeling it, or it was annoying you, you would have got it out instead of exploding when it all accumulates and is compounded. So there's also taking love for granted when you're with a partner and that you're getting on so well, and you take that love for granted. You kind of think, oh yeah, I know he loves me. I know she loves me. And you kind of think, oh well, I don't have to call her. I don't have to reassure her. I don't have to do this. Or he says, I don't have to do that. And, you kind of take it for granted and you stop doing all of those little things that was building up that love, and not realizing how important it was that the two of you maintain that momentum. The two of you continue to be playful and look in each other's eyes and try to make each other laugh. Not with these silly little jokes, but, you know, have a natural way of making each other smile and to be happy in each other's company. So sometimes it's immaturity that causes relationships to go wrong. You know, these stupid little games that people play. And yeah, it's usually games. And infidelity, that is a sore one, you know, that tells the other person that you're not enough for me. That's really what you're telling the other person. It's actually a form of rejection. You might not realize that, but when you're unfaithful to your partner, it's a form of rejection, because what you're telling your partner is that you're not enough. I need something more. I'm dissatisfied with what I have. And that's why it's so hurtful in a lot of relationships, because that's how people see it. They see it that I am not enough. Why am I not enough? I've done this, I've done that, I've put my neck on the line, I've made sacrifices, I've compromised, and yet I'm not enough. Why? And it traumatizes some people. And some people, they just totally call it quits. And infidelity, because that is what it does. It pushes someone away because you are telling them you are not enough. So, lack of conviction, that is all a part of the same thing. And then, of course, you've got the lack of trust, which is another reason why it goes wrong. Because once there's infidelity, once there's lies, once there's deceit, lack of trust follows. And if there's no trust, it's a terrible relationship, because everything is questioned. You're skeptical about everything, and it just cannot work. And there's unrealistic expectations. I mean, are your expectations of your partner realistic? Bearing in mind we're all human, we all have human frailties. We get tired, we get resentful, we get angry, we go through all of these emotions. Is it unrealistic to expect a relationship to continue on a positive upward slope all the time? Or is it going to dip and go up, and are you going to ride with the storm? As it dips, you go down, and as it rises, you go up with it. So I think the most important thing is to be able to communicate your concerns, especially like now, because communication is the key. When you're living together in a confined space, limited freedom, communication is very, very important. Being able to make someone laugh or smile is very extremely important. Trying to be light-hearted, not worrying too much about everything, is the best remedy to get through these times. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.